Yo, welcome back to the channel, guys. Patch 12.19 notes. It's a really interesting patch. We got some crazy changes. There's changes to Syndra, changes to Blitzcrank, changes to Echo, Jinx, Shyvana. Bunch of really interesting stuff to talk about. I'm just going to mention the highlights that I think are really noticeable and also could potentially push champions into the meta or out of the meta. So let's start with some of the big stuff. Syndra's mid-scope update looks pretty interesting. There's some interestingly, I don't know whether they're good or bad for her just yet. And then there are some changes which I do think are just objectively good. So let's go through it. So Syndra's update, I don't know why they nerfed her base health so much. I mean, she kind of just took a straight bullet in my opinion there, but maybe it's, playtesting behind the scenes. They've noticed she was rather strong with this amount of base health. Fair enough. But the big one to start with, they've changed her passive. So her old passive used to be when you hit max level on an ability. So you put 5 points into your Q, your W, your E, or your 3 points into your ultimate, your R, it would get a special effect. Now, instead of just making her purely reliant on levels, what they're actually trying to do is push her, in my opinion, healthy scaling way. So you damage champions and you gain levels to upgrade your abilities. So you get these things called Splinters of Wrath. Name a little cringe, let's be real, but it's okay. So you get Splinters of Wrath, and then once you get 40, 60, 80, and 100, you upgrade your Q, W, E, and R respectively. So her Q, this is a really interesting change. I actually don't know if this is a buff or a nerf. Some Syndra players probably gonna have to tell me. I don't see Syndra at all anymore in high-low. So like I said, some high-low Syndra players will probably figure it out. Her cooldown's been nerfed by 3 seconds. That's a massive nerf to her early wave clear. And in return, what she gets is when her Q is upgraded, she actually gets 2 stacks of her Q. So she can cast Q twice in quick succession if you let the cooldown go. So it's an early sacrifice for a later payoff. I don't know. Syndra players, you tell me if that's good or bad for your laning phase. It's strange because she can't push as hard anymore early game at least. Force of Will, she, basically it's a very similar thing. She gets true damage when she gets her upgrade on her W. So a little bit of it becomes true damage. Her E is an interesting one. She gets massively increased cone radius on her E, and it slows enemies after the E. Now this is super interesting. So she actually now has a slow on her E after you get stunned, and it looks like it's a 70% slow. That's a big slow. I don't know if that affects the stun hitbox, because when Syndra is touching her balls to you, you get stunned. If she misses her balls, then you just don't get stunned. So I don't know whether balls got bigger or balls, stayed the same size. I'm guessing balls stayed the same size. The final point I wanted to mention with Syndra, this is the big one. There's a lot of points to talk about. Her R is interesting because they have just added a way for Syndra to kill tanks. She now has a 15% maximum health execute. If they're below 15%, her ultimate will just guillotine you. You're dead. You're donezo. Now she has a way to finish off, like the 5,000 health orb. Syndra's never had that before. Might make her more playable in a lot of games because it's kind of like, tank season in solo queue. There's a lot of really chunky tanks out there or people just stacking a lot of HP, and Syndra's not very good against that. So yeah, very interesting to see if Syndra starts getting played. Personally, I think people are gonna have to figure out how to play with her new Q because that is a huge change to her laning phase, and you'll have to learn how to lane with her, and wave management has been completely changed. Blitzcrank, my boy Blitzcrank, a rolling stone gathers no moss. So Blitzcrank is getting changed. There's a lot of stuff being changed, but it's not necessarily bad changes in my opinion. They're trying to push him away from just being a hook bot and into something a little bit more interesting and varied. And they're buffing his attack speed on pretty much everything. This is hilarious. Okay, so right here, base attack speed, great. Attack speed buff, attack speed ratio, attack speed buff, W, attack speed buff. They've also given him additional percentage max HP in magic damage on every auto. You guys remember old Blitz? He used to build tier and sheet and stuff like that and run around like a bruiser. This is what I want. I want that back in League of Legends, please. Those are the days. A lot of interesting things. And then finally, the last change, which was really hilarious, was they've removed the stacks on his ultimate. So now you can speedbox somebody, and instead of having only 3 lightning bolts hit them, apparently you can get unlimited. So I'm waiting for the Vandrill video where he shows 60,000 lightning bolts all striking at once because he's broken the attack speed cap. This is an interesting change. Is Blitzcrank going to be a bruiser solo lane played in top lane? I highly doubt it. I highly doubt it. The thing he's lacking is sustain. He just does not have any way of sustaining in lane or staying in lane. If you build him with attack speed and lifesteal, I don't know, maybe there's an item build out there. I do think I'm going to try some really cool gimmicky builds on street, and I think you guys should tune in for these. I'm going to try Hail of Blades Blitzcrank. I think that would be memes. And then press the attack Blitzcrank, and stacking a little bit of attack speed. I think it could work if you play really aggro and you win lane, then you just probably turn into an absolute monster. If you guys want to go see that, go check out my stream, link in the description below. Let's keep going. The remaining interesting stuff is a lot smaller changes, but let's just quickly go over them. So I'm sure a lot of players do not like playing versus Echo. Echo is quite a snowbally type champion. When he gets ahead, he gets very, very far ahead. They have moved some of his damage off of his ultimate, his R, onto his passive. So less burst, more consistent damage from Echo. That's an interesting change. The next change I would talk about is Jinx. Jinx has been buffed. They gave her 50 damage on her R and 2 base AD. It's an interesting change. I think 50 damage on her R is quite a lot. I think she could potentially start seeing a bit more play. And once you get into like mid-late game, you can start spamming R almost like poke. It starts to become basically a poke ability because it's on such a low cooldown. So cool change. I like Jinx. I like playing with Jinx. It's very fun. I don't like playing against Jinx because she scales and usually outscales me, so kind of cringe. Thought I'd just quickly mention this. Mr. Malphite, they're giving him AP scaling on his W and his R, so I guess Thunderclap can clap some ass cheeks now with AP builds. Hilarious, but I don't think I see AP builds in high elo because it's a little too exploitable. However, I do enjoy playing AP Malphite on Smurf accounts or normals because it's just hilarious, one-shotting an entire team with R. I'm sure quite a lot of people are very happy to see this. Master Yi is being nerfed. Apparently he's been destroying in all elos. I was seeing a lot of Master Yi players in high elo, so I'm not surprised that he was going to get nerfed. He has been basically unstoppable once he gets ahead. Once he gets rolling, if you do not have the right team comp, you just get steamrolled by this guy right now. You need targeted CC that he cannot deal with his dodge. So yeah, I mean, a lot of people should be happy about this. I personally am very happy about this, man. Screw this champion, bro. 10-foot pole. Just get him out of my games. Nasus changes very quickly. Just wanted to talk about, this was supposed to be in the last patch, I believe. However, it didn't make it in, so it is now in this patch, the Wither change. Are you guys seeing the attack speed slow on his W now? They have buffed it. It is now at max rank a 71.25% attack speed slow. So if you're an auto attack champion playing against Nasus, you might as well just stop playing the game for a little bit or buy QSS. That is a disgustingly huge attack speed slow. That's got to be the highest attack speed slow in the game. Somebody can correct me on that. So if you're a fan of Moscow 5 and you're also giga old like I am, please tell me people remember Moscow 5. I'm not that old, right? You guys probably remember Empire ults. I'm sure Kesha right now is freaking out because they nerfed Nunu a while back. They're buffing his AP ratios on his ult. So like that's a huge AP ratio, man. How many abilities have a 300% AP ratio? That's kind of chonky. So yeah, I'm sure AP Nunu players rejoicing, and normal human people are probably not too happy to see those AP Nunu players in their games, but it is what it is. Another champion that has been terrorizing high elo has been Rek'Sai. I have seen a couple of Rek'Sais get ahead early, and it genuinely feels like no matter how much armor I stack and no matter how strong I am as a support in bot lane, he will obliterate my AD carry way quicker than I can deal with him through exhaust. It feels really absurd right now. They gave her a couple of buffs on her E and other things like that on her Q. So they're kind of trying to tone down her damage a tiny bit to compensate. I don't know if it'll be enough, but it is a step in the right direction because I have seen Rek'Sai just absolutely obliterate people and take over the game. And it's really hard to stop if the Rek'Sai player has half a brain. Good job, Brian. And the final change I wanted to talk about is Shyvana. So Shyvana's AD and AP scalings are all being bumped up. So I don't know if people will play more Shyvana, but in my personal opinion, she was already a scaling champ who just power farmed it all game. So I do think that this is a general buff to Shyvana. Like I don't see why it's not just going to massively benefit Shyvana players because they are always going for late game anyway. So they're basically just getting a bunch of free damage and you know, they should be really, really happy with this. So I think Shyvana players should be young chillings, and also with the Chemtech soul, you know, I think it would suit Shyvana to get it if I'm not mistaken. So yeah, straight up buff. So we might see more Shyvanas in high elo, who knows. The last big change is Eclipse. So Eclipse has been kind of, they're flipping it around a bit. They're removing a lot of lethality, 6 lethality, and they're giving Eclipse bonus attack damage. So they're trying to make it more for fighters and less for assassins. Okay, sure. I think pretty much everyone was buying Eclipse. I don't know, this might affect champions like MF. I don't know if it's a buff or a nerf for them, but it's definitely going to affect AD carries that buy Eclipse very, you know, drastically depending on how much armor the enemy team's stacking. Because now you can stack armor into Eclipse better. It will feel not as bad. The damage will be lower from Eclipse. Somebody double check, I'm correct on that, but I'm pretty confident in that statement. They are changing Eclipse, and it's a pretty big change because a lot of champions right now are building this item. So we will see if item builds get shifted around. Other than that, guys, if you want to see the other notes from the patch, then go take a look on the website and drop a comment if you want me to talk about anything else. I hope you guys enjoy the patch. Tune into my streams. I will be streaming Friday, Saturday, Sunday. You guys can come over and see if Halo Blades Blitzcrank works, and if it doesn't, then I am blaming Sander. It's always Sander's fault in my chat. But otherwise, thank you very much for watching, guys. I will see you guys in the next patch. And yeah, have a good one. Oh, and go watch Worlds 2021, and hopefully our boys Rogue can take it home. Peace. Have a nice one.